Hello and welcome back to the Irish Tennis Updates podcast. My name's Adam, your host. It's been a while since I've had a new episode out, so I'm excited to be back with a new one today. This time I've been chatting to Garreth Greene. Garreth is Ireland's number one wheelchair tennis player. He is currently ranked inside the top 100 in the world, and his goal is to qualify for the Paris Paralympics in 2024. In this episode, we chat about how Garreth got into the sport, his journey to this point, including his entry into the professional game and trying to qualify for previous Paralympics. We also touch on the state of wheelchair tennis in Ireland at the moment and how it's changed over Garreth's time involved in the sport, and also look at the state of wheelchair tennis around the world. I think it's a really interesting episode. It's great to hear about Garreth's journey. I think it's a really inspirational story. And I definitely think that Garreth's making a difference in wheelchair tennis here in Ireland. So without further ado, let's get into the episode. And here is Garreth Greene.
All right, Garreth, just thanks very much for coming on the show. How are things with you?
I'm good, thanks. And look, thanks for having me on the podcast. I'm delighted to be on your show. Things are going really well for me. Cheers. Everything's gone in the right direction. So yeah, it's been busy, but really rewarding. So
yeah, no, I know we'll definitely get into a bit about how you're doing at the moment on the court. I know you're playing a lot of tournaments, and you're back recently from one and back out again soon. So that's all great, and we'll get into kind of talking about that. But just to start, I want to just get into how did you get into tennis? Because I know it wasn't as a kid for you; it was kind of a bit later. So how did that happen for you?
yeah, so I'll give you the kind of the condensed story because I can tend to go on an awful lot about this. Um, But so basically, I've been involved in sport all my life through Irish Wheelchair Association, which has been amazing for obviously people like me with disabilities and providing sport opportunities. So I done pretty much a lot of different types of sports like athletics and swimming and table tennis and stuff like that, which I loved all of them. But basketball was the one sport that I did do consistently. So I think I was playing from about the age of 9 or 10. And I did that kind of like generally consistently up until the age maybe about 16, and then I stopped for a while. But anyway, I continued on into my 20s, and then we were playing in the British League, which is kind of quite high level. And then I had a friend who was a Canadian player who was living in Ireland, and he had played tennis already. And I've always loved tennis, like from a kid. Like me and my sister used to play on the street after watching Wimbledon and stuff like that. So racket sports definitely like baseball and rounders and cricket and all that kind of thing. I was good at them, but never put two and two together playing in a chair in tennis, like on a tennis court. So then when I was 28, I finally gave in. He was pestering me to go play with him in a Carrick Mines. Had a wheelchair tennis session every Saturday during the kind of summer months, and I gave in and said, okay, I'll go. And after that, pretty much like after that first session with back row, I gave up basketball.
Okay.
And I just said, this is what I want to do. It was just immediate. I was playing in my basketball chair, and that was it. Like I was hooked immediately. So that's when everything started, basically.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because obviously you'd kind of been aware of tennis and been a fan of tennis for longer, but never really occurred to like you weren't really aware of wheelchair tennis. Was that not so much?
No, I was definitely not aware of wheelchair tennis. I was aware of tennis, obviously, in the Agassi, Sampras, Federer, that type of aspect. But I remember trying to play as a kid, and I always sat on the ground, which is really like strange, and because I was terrible at tennis, obviously, because I couldn't move, obviously, whatever, like especially on those courts. A lot of them were tarmac, so you get wrecked trying to dive around the place. So yeah, it was really weird, and I don't know. I keep asking myself that question: why I never put two and two together, and say, why don't I try tennis in a chair? But it literally, I mean, I have a picture. There's a picture on my website of me serving I think I was about 7, and I'm sitting on the ground serving, and it was just bizarre. Like, but no, the first introduction to actual wheelchair tennis was when my friend, who was Canadian, who had that exposure to, obviously in America, because wheelchair tennis kind of kicked off there with Brad Parks in 1976. So that's when the sport, so it's quite mature at this stage. So yeah, it was like, obviously, but it's not a regret, but it's a question.
Yeah. So you did obviously eventually get to tennis at kind of in your late 20s, and
Yeah.
how quick did it take for you to realize that this was as a sport that you were particularly good at, and kind of start maybe competing and training a bit more?
Yeah, it became kind of apparent straight away because I fell in love with it immediately, because I did really like racket sports. But it was always limiting because I was always sitting on the ground. So, that's mainly why I didn't go anywhere. Because obviously if you play baseball or cricket or rounders, you have to run so I couldn't. So I had this thing where we just adapted it. But yeah, I just kept staying. I stayed at Carrickmines, like religiously went every week. And then this whole new world just opened up. It was like I found out about the Irish Open that was on. I think can't remember if that was like when it started or actually no, it had already been going. And then I found out about the Belfast Open, which was like another sort of like not international, but kind of a national tournament. So this whole new world opened up when I started wheelchair tennis, and it was like, there didn't have to be a team. There didn't have to be like I could do this all on my own. As in, you were, a team didn't have to qualify and stuff, so you were free to go. And yeah, I had a lot of chair skills from basketball, so that transferred really, really well into tennis because chair skills is obviously a big, big factor, like the movements. And then I started looking for hard courts to play, and Westwood was the first place I found them apart from Carrickmines, and I started playing there. And yeah, like my friends who were from Canada, literally we used to train every week. And I went through this pattern of like kind of training up to the Irish Open, which was in the summer, and the Belfast Open, and then sort of petering off then into winter, and then picking it back up again, sort of like in spring. So that's the kind of way it went for a couple of years. Even though I loved it, that's just the way it went. And as it progressed, then I started getting exposed to the ITF, the World Tour, and then things start getting like really interesting. So
like at what point was it that you kind of made the move from playing those couple of national events each year to think about, can I keep going throughout the year and start playing some international ones? How did that kind of switch happen for you?
Well, I had gone to the British Open in a year later in 2009, which is a big tournament. It's an ITF, it's a super series, so it's like it's the next level to a slam. So it has some like, I remember arranging it, and I was terrified, like, cause I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I remember I picked up at the airport, and I was in a lease chair. It was like your standard sports wheelchair, tennis wheelchair, but it was very basic. Like so I felt like very like novice, which I was obviously. But I remember getting into the players area in British Open, and within the space of about 5 minutes, I saw Shingo Kaneda, who was the world number one, and Esther Vajir, which is the women's world number one. And I just wanted to go home. I was like, this is too big, like for me. So I think I was playing Division C, so it was like down at the bottom, but I loved it. At the same time as being terrified, it was like, being dumped in at the deep end. So I did that, and then I came back and I said, yeah, I'll go training. And I can't remember exactly why, but maybe I was procrastinating a lot about competing again. But it wasn't until London 2012 that really changed everything, because I was still playing tennis, but I wasn't actually committing to it. So I was kind of like sitting on the fence basically, and then being, afraid of losing, afraid of winning kind of thing. I was like, didn't want to go all in, but did. So I was kind of conflicted, which I'm sure like loads of people have that the same feeling like. But so I volunteered at for Paralympics Ireland in London 2012, and I was communications manager for all the web and social results. So I wasn't competing obviously, but I was at it, and I had a media pass, and it let me go to like everywhere, and that pretty much turned my life upside down, because that kind of gave me a slap in the face and said, you're literally wasting time by not deciding not to go for the thing you really want to go for, which was tennis, which is compete, like, and see, compete on the world tour and see how good I could get, and the ultimate, which was to play was to represent Ireland at the Paralympics. Like, so when I came back from London, that's when my life turned upside down. I decided, right, that's it, and everything just snowballed from that. So I literally went on my first tour match was in the winter, just 2013.
Okay.
It was in Prague, and yeah, that was it. That opened up another. That was another like just world, another sort of like, because that was a lower tournament, so I wasn't confronted with all these like top 10 players. You know, it was a little bit easier, but not by much. But yeah, so that I just went on from there. So
yeah, so could you kind of just describe a little bit those next few years? So if that's 2013, I guess by 2016 you have your career high, you know, about around 83 in the world, so you're up in that top 100. So how did those few years when you, I guess, competed a lot more and started to have a good bit more success as well?
They're a bit of a blur, to be honest, because they were the beginning years, I guess. So like I was trying to figure out what I had to do to play wheelchair tennis, and I didn't have any expertise. I had able-bodied expertise. Like my first coach was Justin Clark, from West. He was in Westwood at the time. He's an Australian player, but he was formerly of Nace as well. So, and Justin's a really good friend, and he gave me an awful lot of time with starting at 6:30 to try and work around a full-time job, you know, a training. And so he was amazing. And I still obviously had Carrick Minds as well, the sessions that were, you know, going on every, like during the summer months. But the problem was that I was obviously starting. So I didn't have any wheelchair expertise. So I spent an awful lot of time training and stuff. And money was another problem. So I was paying for all this myself. So full-time job, and then tried to go to tournaments as much as I could. But obviously that has an impact. That has a ceiling, like, you know. So one part of it was in 2014, I had myself and my now wife, but she was my girlfriend at the time. We went to Portugal on a holiday in the summer of 2013, and we met a coach in Portugal. We went on I brought my tennis chair and we were playing tennis and stuff, and we met a coach, and long story short, he gave us an opportunity to come and go live in Portugal for a few months and do sort of like an extended training thing. So that would be, I guess, the point where things got real serious. Like, so we spent 6 months. Unfortunately, it didn't work out with the coach, you know, differences and stuff. So we stayed there, and I got to travel all over Portugal, visiting their national tournaments, which is amazing. And they invited me to come play, you know, and from then on, that I would say that was the real start of my campaign, because I started really learning a bit more about wheelchair tennis from wheelchair tennis players.
You know,
so that was the big thing. And even then, I still didn't know exactly what was going on, because everyone was trying to kind of doing their own thing and trying to figure it out and stuff. So yeah, and then Rio was obviously 2014 into 2015. That I had to do a fundraiser to start trying to get tournaments. So that was a big sort of ramp up of tournament activity. So it was obviously ranking points for qualification, and I kind of knew that so at that time, the top 40 was the qualification mark for Paralympics. And I knew, like, I didn't have enough time to qualify naturally from where I was in my career. Like, so I was hoping to get as high as I could, and then apply again, maybe qualify by a wild card, which obviously I didn't want to do it that way, but that was the only kind of like opportunity I had at the time. So that was leading up into so I think I did like, maybe 11 to 15 tournaments from 2015 into the qualification of 2016.
Yeah.
And I got my career high was 83. So, which I was pretty happy with, like, because at the time, like, I'm looking back, as hindsight's a great thing, you know, I was doing okay for the tennis I was playing. But yeah, so obviously I didn't get to qualify. I didn't get the wild card, unfortunately. But yeah, like, and then I took after that, like, I took a break to get married and stuff. So this is now the next.
No, I mean, because you hear that kind of top 100 is sort of this elusive thing. So for you to be being top 100 now, I know you're you're back there now. So it's kind of amazing that you're there. So that's great. And so you mentioned obviously the kind of in Ireland not having much wheelchair tennis kind of expertise, and then you got some in Portugal. I guess two questions: is that similar now? Is it a little bit better, and how could that be improved even more for kind of Irish wheelchair tennis?
It's getting an awful lot better, obviously. The it's not a problem, but like all the coaches I've ever worked with have always tried their best to help me and figure out, because it's always been a figuring out process, and I've sometimes harmed this and helped it as well by not knowing either. So like, you can go off on a direction, and I remember doing it, spending hours on specific stuff that wasn't helping, but obviously you don't know that at the time, so the only thing is to do it and then figure out it's not working, and then you're trying to try something else. But I guess like the quicker way to do it is always to have wheelchair tennis players, multiples that you can see patterns emerging from, and then work. You can coaches can pick out stuff, but obviously with me it's different, and then they never got to see me playing against wheelchair players. So that like there's obviously guys in the north, obviously like Iber and Stafford and stuff, and they were great, but there was traveling up to them. I was having to travel 2 hours just for a training session, so it became, we did try all that kind of stuff, and it just became, for an hour and a half, 2 hours, it was just like, it became very, very draining, to do that driving stuff. So so it was kind of like, so now obviously I'm working with Stuart Wilkinson, who's the former Tennis Foundation / LTA coach, and Stuart has got 20 years experience of wheelchair tennis, and he's produced Alfie Hewitt and the whole range of other players that are all like either top 10 or top 20 Grand Slam winning, Paralympic winning coaches, so are players. So the difference when I went to him was stark about what to do versus what I was doing, and that might sound sort of kind of like a bit confusing when from an able-bodied perspective, because but in a chair obviously you're trying to move an object that is not as controllable as your legs, so that means then you have to adapt a pattern to that, a movement pattern, to account for things that happen in a match, like to give yourself time to recover. So I would say I always used to play on a horizontal, which means left to right, where wheelchair tennis is predominantly played vertically in and out of the court. So you come into the court, you turn in, and you're back out again. And that might seem counterintuitive to coaches, and it has done, say, why aren't you looking to take the ball early, to take more time away? But you don't get that opportunity a lot of times. You have to work for it. And that's what this game is. This pattern is working for that short ball, or that ball you can take on the rise or early. It's not as simple as an able-bodied player hitting, serve, return, and then your next ball you're looking to take it early, because you don't know what happens in wheelchair tennis. Like, it can be unpredictable. It can be, and then you have really good players that know exactly you're doing, trying to do the same thing you're doing. So, so thankfully I'm working with Ron Cherry as well now in Elm Park. There's obviously Alan in Greystones, and Mark Bullock, who's obviously Stuart's colleague in LTA or ex-LTA, has been over a few times. So there's definitely an education piece going on with coaches, and the fact that I'm seeing more and more players is amazing, because that means that it's going to be this continuation of wheelchair tennis in Ireland. So it's at the moment it's in and that's all thanks to Enjoy Tennis. They've done an amazing job of actually getting, it's taken time, but getting wheelchair tennis in, and now it's got that foothold I was hoping that it would get, and it's staying there. It's not just disappearing, it's not just going for 2 years and then it flops. It's consistent. So it's amazing to see.
Yeah, no, and I think it is definitely great. And I think you have to recognize that, there's definitely a role that you're playing there, that those juniors can see an Irish player who's done it. And I guess that wasn't really there for you. And that's important for people to see.
Oh, well, yeah, thanks. And look, that's all part of the package. That's what, I'm sure was the the circle in Irish tennis and in able-body tennis, which is like you have players that are going on the world tour, and then juniors want to be like them, and then those players come back then when they've finished and try and help out a bit with the upcoming juniors to give advice to or play against or become coaches or whatever. So yeah, like that was kind of a bit of a help, the fact that I didn't have it, because that gave me an awful lot of drive to do it. Like I mean, Justin had always said to me, you're going to be the trailblazer, you're going to be the one that has to like put up with all the stuff that's not there in order to make it. And then you make it, but you also create a pathway for all juniors, or even adults who have come into, like, this is the thing with wheelchair tennis, it's not just, you don't have to play the world tour. It's a really great sport just to get people, like yourself, you've seen what it's like when you see kids improving, even though they may not want to play international or whatever, but from a disability perspective, it's like their independence increases, their function increases, they're getting exercise, they're having fun, they're with their peers. It's the same with sport, like.
No, absolutely. And just for anyone, that this is kind of a session that we have out in Greystones, a bunch of juniors, and Gareth has been out with us a bunch of times, and kind of the kids who got to see him. So that's kind of what's going on there, and it really is amazing. But Gareth, just to hop back into your journey a little bit. So you mentioned you had a bit of a break when you got married, and then I guess there's a bit of a break with COVID as well. So when you got back into it, were you always planning to come back, or were there kind of doubts at some point that you kind of commit fully again?
No, I knew I was always going to come back. It was like I didn't kind of leave or retire or anything like that. It was just, I had done enough after Rio, and then Tokyo kind of came around, and I didn't have the money, and I'm still playing tennis, and I was doing some tournaments, but the effort it takes to go fundraise and all that kind of stuff, I'd learned, like, my lesson from doing it before, that it's just trying to do it all yourself. It's like, it's a killer. Like, you're trying to train and hold down a job as well. Like, it was a nightmare, honestly. It was really, really tough. And even though I had like lots of people helping me, and like they were amazing, but it was still me at the center of it, trying to do everything. I was responsible for all that. So, or trying to manage it. So I did take a break in Tokyo, and I was kind of looking at Tokyo and like, will I or won't I? And I just, at the time, I was happy. I just got married, and then it was too late to go into Tokyo qualification. It would have been another frantic sort of like push. So I was just happy doing some like world tour events, and gone seeing people I knew and friends and stuff. So and then Tokyo was like, I just didn't have the time or the energy to go fundraise. So I said, okay, after Tokyo, and then COVID hit, obviously, which put a big, massive damper on everything. So I was lucky enough to be on the like Team Ireland program from Tennis Ireland. So that was a big, massive change in what I'd previously had. Because to be honest, like I'd never gotten very much recognition or any support. So, but this was a massive change. Even just the recognition alone to be on a Team Ireland program was like a lot. So now that there's funding available based on rank, that's been an extra massive help. So thank like Tennis Ireland, they've really done a really great job to start this process of funding players. And obviously they're juniors, and like you can see it on Tennis Ireland. It's great. It's amazing to see all the exposure those juniors are getting to travel and stuff. So yeah, so I was lucky enough to be able to train a bit during COVID because of the Team Ireland status. So, but I went back in 2021, in September. That was my first tour match in nearly 2 years. And it was very obvious. I went out first rounds, both tournaments, not badly, but like the tour had changed, everyone had gotten better, and the level had gone up, and now it was harder to just even get first rounds. Like, I mean, it wasn't easy before, but like this was just, it was different. So yeah. So yeah, I just started off from there. And it was really hard because like I haven't not played any wheelchair players and not had any match practice or any match exposure. It's you just have to get back into tournament mode. Again, you know, it's not, you can do as much training as you want, but matches are, even practice sets are still not the same. It's playing actual tournaments that gets you that kind of like match fitness, like that. You're not phased going into a tournament. You know, for me, it was like tournament, big gap, and it was nearly repeating itself over again. It was like going to a first tournament all over again. So, yeah, since then, I've been doing steady tournaments as much as I could through the kind of like end of the lockdowns. But obviously this year has been amazing. I've done 10 this year so far, and then recently in Switzerland, I had my first world chair title, singles title win, which is unbelievable. Like I never knew when that was going to happen, but it's thanks to the work of like my coaching changed in September and October, and literally it's been that's because I now know what I'm doing. I have people who have produced who have a you know, I found fundamentals to train on, like that are saying these fundamentals will provide an answer in matches. So that's literally what's been happening.
And so you had that. So obviously the last year you've been kind of competing consistently, which is great, and you had that title, as you said, which is amazing, because I was watching the scores and stuff that week. So well done, and I know you had a great one in the doubles as well. So that's great.
Yeah,
so I guess if you were to say I guess ranking wise, you're back up inside the top 100 again, which is brilliant. And I guess I know around that mark in doubles as well. But so where are you at the moment? What are your kind of plans for the rest of the year, the next few months? Kind of how do you feel about where you are?
I'm pretty happy where I am right now. Like my whole goal, sort of tennis goals and like direction has changed from like a results based thinking to process based thinking, and that's been another big change for me. And it's been a really hard change because I was very results based, like a lot of players, probably a majority of players are results based, because then you ask as soon as you play a match, someone asks you what was the score, and that determines how well you did. But it's not that it's wrong, it's just when you think that way, you put yourself under an awful lot of pressure. So that means if you're not winning, if you're not like in quote unquote winning, then you're doing bad. Even though the player might be way better than you, or you might be playing your best, or are you doing the things you're supposed to be doing? So it takes you very much away, or can take you away from that process. So unless you master the process first, I think, or at least get really good at it, it's very harmful to think about the score. And look, even I'm still struggling with this, because it's incredibly hard to ignore the score, or try to ignore the score, and just, you know, control the things you can control. So I'm pretty happy now. Like the first title was just like, I honestly did not think that was going to happen until much later, but it just happened. And then it's given me an awful lot of confidence now to believe in what I'm doing. So now it feels like, yes, I'm on the right track. I just have to keep doing the same things that I've been doing and try and make it consistent in matches, so I'm not like having too big ups and downs. And then I'm sitting at, I think I'm 92 at the minute. The next 3 months are pre-packed with the end of season tournaments. So I have maybe 5 left that I'd like to do before the end of the year, and then I can take not too nice a break, but at least tournament break. But it's then it'll be back into February, probably starting in the UK.
Sure.
And then next year will actually be even worse. It'll be busier again, because 2023 is the full year I have going into 2024. So my qualification cutoff date is the end of May 2024 for Paris. So whatever rank I am on that date, that's my qualification rank. So they've now reduced the spots, so it's now the top 32 in the world.
Okay.
So
I was hoping it would go the other way, but it's gone the wrong way.
No.
Okay.
No, I don't know what I can't comment on what the rationale is. There's lots of speculation out there. But the wild cards have gone up, but I obviously I don't want to qualify by wild card. I want to qualify naturally, and I don't think. I think it's 100% possible. I'm geared for top 30. That was my goal before we even knew about the reduction in numbers. So yeah, like I'm really happy where I am. I'm like, for the first time, I'm not agitated that I'm not there yet, which is like patience. So that's the one thing I've had to learn, because that feeds into an awful lot of mistakes and rush things, and even on a small level, playing points on court, it's like rushing. So I'm happy where I am and the progression that I'm making. So
brilliant, yeah, brilliant. And just a couple more questions, Gareth. Firstly, kind of to go back, just kind of to looking at wheelchair tennis in general. If you could maybe talk, I know you kind of mentioned struggles and stuff that you've had in over the years. How do you see the state of kind of wheelchair tennis now in Ireland, and what you might like to see change over the next few years?
Yeah, I think wheelchair tennis is in a really, really great place right now. It's at the kind of it's at the very start again. I mean, unfortunately it was in a good place a good few years ago, when we had the Irish Open running and the Belfast Open and stuff, and it kind of unfortunately fell by the wayside, for whatever reason. Like just happened. So now I'm really happy with the way things are looking now, because it's at the very beginning, right? So we don't have, there's groups happening, and there's that development process where people are figuring out whether they want to play wheelchair tennis or whether they can, or so there's the participation model is one thing, which is great, which is getting people out playing and hitting, and then what I'm hoping to see is what kind of did happen in the UK, because the Tennis Foundation, which is gone now, which is kind of that was incorporated into the LTA. So they started very similar way. They started off with participation, and then they got obviously groups around the country. And what that developed into was obviously people still playing participation, but people would go off on their own and start making their own groups and playing together in different areas. So they, like, whether that's going to their local club and playing, or whether it's forming groups with other players, even just for recreational. And then there was also other players that wanted to compete internationally. So I think that's a natural progression. And obviously if enjoy tennis, I guess what I'd love to see happen is a national league or a national tournament series or something like that, or even if it was an end of year thing, so everyone could come together and play. Like, people would be able to play better players and see that's how sport develops. It's not, there's groups happening, and that's great, but everyone needs to come together and like have a what would you say, like a national day, or a coaching day, or a participation day, whatever it is. And I think the development of that just happens by itself. Once you start doing those type of things, then all sorts of good stuff starts happening. Coaches get together, they start talking to each other, they exchange ideas, and then if we can get more expertise in, like from LTA, then we start off at a much better place, instead of having to figure all this stuff out ourselves when we don't need to. So yeah, I mean, I can see players coming from Ireland playing on the World Tour, because it's so accessible in terms of, like, you can choose to play, and yes, it is traveling, and there is cost, and there is all that kind of stuff, but it's definitely doable. There's ways around, there's ways around everything, and the more people on tour, the more they inspire more juniors and more people. So I mean, look, apart from all that, even from like independence, and like, obviously I'm talking a lot about juniors, but this is also open to anyone with a physical disability. So even players that are even people who have, say, acquired injuries, or were playing tennis and now can't play tennis because of whatever, if they've damaged their knee, or that happens all the time in the UK. If people who have had amputations are now playing wheelchair tennis, and it just opens up multiple doors for people, like on so many levels, like from fitness and enjoyment, and then social, and then like Yeah, I mean, I've seen that happen. People take up wheelchair tennis from an accident, and they're now playing the World Tour.
Yeah,
So I mean,
yeah,
and they again, it's like me, started late in their life or later in their life. Like it doesn't have you don't have to play tennis to enjoy it. To start off as a junior or have a junior career. Um, but yeah, like there's just it creates so much. Like so, that's what I'd love to see.
yeah. No, absolutely. And there's a quick one. Is there an Irish Open at the moment?
No, no. Um, like I did hear, I know before COVID, there was maybe talk of maybe Ireland hosting an ITF for futures, which would be a great way to kickstart even more interest because obviously VI have done this. Visually impaired tennis have done the same thing. They've brought the World Championships, I think, to Shankill Tennis Club, and that was like Liam O'Donoghue, which who's helped me enormously as well. Uh, Yeah, and that's obviously you've seen the impact. Like there's an awful lot of VI players playing there. So yeah, look, who knows? That again, that national tournament would be
Yeah,
amazing to get.
yeah, yeah.
Like even for juniors to attend that, like would be awesome. Like that's what they want. I'm sure you've seen with the some juniors in Greystones that are just like want to compete so much because they're doing this training and then they want to play each other. So.
Exactly. And I think it's just worth quickly mentioning kind of wheelchair tennis in general, kind of more worldwide. And I see you mentioned earlier when you were younger, you would have been very aware of tennis and a fan of tennis, but not so much wheelchair tennis. But I'd like to think maybe now that would be a bit different, that it is, especially in the Grand Slams, it's on a much bigger stage and it gets some of those bigger courts for the big matches. So how do you see wheelchair tennis kind of in the world at the moment?
Yeah, it's going from next level to next level. It really is. Like, I mean, I did not think that Wimbledon would give, like, say, Altitude court number one, wasn't it? For his semi-final, like, and then US. Then what's going to happen there? They like US Open then increases the draw size to 16. So for people who don't know, the Grand Slams are currently set to the top 8. Which is really top 6 and 2 wildcards or 1 wildcard sometimes. So it's very extremely hard to get into the Grand Slam level, like which, to be honest, it kind of keeps you in a Grand Slam. It keeps you in the top 10, getting that amount of points. So now it's opening up. US Open is now top 16, and they're also hosting for the first time. I know some junior players in the UK are getting to, because of their rank in their junior tour, they're going to make history by playing their first junior tournament at a Grand Slam. So that's another thing that like I would not have seen happen. I did not think that was going to happen this soon. So yeah, it's getting more. I mean, the amount of people that say to me now, I was watching Wimbledon, I was watching wheelchair tennis on thing, and that's amazing because they're watching it. Like, so it's becoming mainstream, which is what we all want. Like, it's to have its place alongside able-bodied Grand Slams. It's happening in tournaments that are like there's ATP tournaments that are now having wheelchair events alongside. That's another model that they're trying to propagate, which means that the wheelchair tour gets the benefits of what the ATP offer, which is like all the perks from the ATP tour, which all that money provides, which is not necessarily in wheelchair tennis at the minute. But in saying that as well, like prize money is increasing. It's becoming look like it has the same problems as the ATP tour and the WTA, which means that the top get the most, and the rest of have to fight for so that unfortunately there's no easy. I don't think there's an easy solution to that, no matter what you do. But you can make it better. But I mean, even futures level is now increasing in prize money. So yeah, it's getting a lot better, thankfully.
It's great to hear. And yeah, if anyone who's listening hasn't seen wheelchair tennis before, I mean, absolutely you should just go on YouTube and look up some points, because it really is amazing to watch, and that's why it's getting more popular, because it's it is amazing to watch. It's brilliant.
Yeah, it's a pretty tough sport to play. Like, I mean, I didn't make it easy for myself picking it. an individual sport, and then on top of that, like a hard sport like tennis, and then playing in front of chairs. So it's look, I don't know what it's like to play able-bodied tennis, but wheelchair tennis is tough, and it's the same frustrations are there when you play, like letting go of mistakes, missing, all that kind of stuff. It's the same. It's just from a chair. So but yeah, look, there's tons of footage on Prime has an awful lot of matches from the US Open, and YouTube has Paralympic matches. There's hours and hours and hours of it there. So yeah, look, go have a look. Obviously, video is never the same. Seeing a match, like I'm sure, I don't know, I've never seen a live ATP match, unfortunately, yet. So me watching on TV, the being there in real life is obviously a massive difference, right? So the same is true in wheelchair tennis. It's faster, it's stronger, it's everything. It's amplified when you're there. So yeah.
No, absolutely. Now, Gareth, like it's been absolutely amazing just to have this chat and hear about your story and just kind of wheelchair tennis in general. And obviously, I just want to wish you the very best for the rest of the year and going on and towards Paris and all that. But just before we finish up, if I could just ask, what's your favorite thing about tennis?
This is probably a weird answer, but I would have said my favorite thing about wheelchair tennis is kind of like our tennis is getting lost in it, as in getting into that flow state, which I've never gotten before in other sports, where you get into a frame of mind where nothing else matters and everything is like just happening, and you're just hitting, and there's no worries, or like you're just doing what's happening right there and stuff like that. I guess that would be one of my favorite things, but that's very sort of like I don't know, hard to explain. The other thing is, sorry to add two things, but
of course, yeah.
The other thing is that it's taught me a huge amount about myself. So it's kind of like it's forced me to accept myself. It's kind of like I heard it. I can't even claim it as my own, but to me, tennis is like holding up a mirror. So you're not trying to beat your opponent. You're most of the time you're trying to beat yourself, until you let go and accept all the flaws, all the stuff you have, and then you can kind of let go and play. So that's what kind of, and it goes into your everyday life as well. So it's taught me a massive amount about not tying self-worth up with the result of a match, that type of thing. Where tennis is an amazing sport, but you're not a lesser person for losing, and you're not a better person for winning. You're just that's just where the game went. So I guess that would be my
that's great. That's
a deeper version. I hope that's okay.
No, that's a great answer. That's brilliant. That's really good. Now, Gareth, as I said, huge thanks for coming on and sharing your story and giving up the time for this. I know you're off to training soon, so I'll let you go and enjoy that. And yeah, big thanks again, and just the very best of luck for the future.
No problem. Thank you very much for having me.
Once again, a big thanks to Gareth for his time and coming on this episode and sharing his story with us. I think you'll agree it's a really amazing story. I'm definitely going to be following Gareth's progress with interest and wish him the very, very best over the next couple of years as he gears up to Paris. And I think that anyone who's listened to this episode will also be following Gareth's progress with interest and be very much behind Gareth's tennis journey. Thanks to you also for listening to this episode. If you did enjoy it, please consider sharing it, liking the episode, and sharing it with anybody that you think might also enjoy it. Thanks very much for listening. Until next time, I've been Adam, and goodbye.